Hi everyone, it's Nick. Welcome back to my channel. Okay, in this video today, we're doing another iteration of my series called Things That Are Making Your Home Look Cheap. Now, inevitably when I do these videos, people feel called out and they get really excited to get into the comment section and tippity-tappity and say all the things of how I've offended them. And before you go there, before you do it, because I don't want to waste your time, I want you to consider for a second that I don't actually care. So I'm just gonna save you some time. So honestly, it's just easier for everybody. And honestly, with everything going on in the world right now, like me making fun of boob lights, which I'm gonna do in this video, it doesn't even rank in the top 10. You know, it's not even one of the 10 worst things happening in the world right now. So let's just move on, have some fun. Remember, it doesn't really matter. And let's get going. Okay, first on my list is actually not even a thing that's making your home look cheap, but it's the layout. And that is gonna be all your furniture pushed up against the wall. Now, again, before you tippity-tappity, I just wanna say that sometimes the answer is to put your furniture up against the wall, okay? I'm specifically talking about those sofas, okay? If you're shoving it against the wall, it might just be the move. In this space, for example, I got a sofa here and I got a TV here. It's teeny. I don't have a whole lot of room to do any other layout but to push the sofa against the wall. So sometimes it is the right answer. But often in a bigger space, it's actually not the right answer, because if it's a really huge space, the layout is feeling a little amateur, dare I say, when everything just is so shoved up against the wall, and especially if the two sofas are like 15 feet apart. 20 feet apart. I don't know how big your living room is, but if they're really far apart, it just feels really amateur. When designing your living room, whether there's a TV involved, a fireplace involved, a beautiful piece of art, whatever your focal point, whatever, ideally you're building your living room for conversation. Remember that? Remember that old thing before we just started doom scrolling? That was super fun, and maybe reconsider it. I say it's a really great thing that you, especially, hopefully if you like your family, but put a space where you can actually converse and talk to each other. Talk to you about your day, how great the Nicklewis channel is. I don't know what you guys talk about, but you got lots of great options. But maybe just stick to that topic. And you can just really have fun and talk together and build your room around conversation where people can interact, make each other laugh. We can talk about things, the goings on in the world. I don't know, how was your day? I don't know, how was your day? Like all that stuff. You can just have fun and do that. But if everything is so far apart, I'm thinking of like my parents' living room in the 90s. Sorry to call them out again. Oof. You know the room, like it was the living room where like you had the vacuum line, so I wasn't allowed to go in unless it was Christmas. So those couches were like, they were pretty far apart, y'all. And we had a beautiful fireplace in the middle, but then we had these sofas on the other side of the room. And it wasn't built for conversation. And I just think it just feels a little amateur. And I just think if you build a space designed for conversation, for people to live, so you've got side chairs, you've got sofas, you've got a coffee table or an ottoman, it's built for conversation, drinks, food, all the rest. That is a space that feels luxurious. It doesn't matter necessarily what the furniture is. I mean, it kind of does, but still, just that layout tip alone is going to make your space feel a lot better and more interesting and more thought through and that's what we're looking for in our design, right? That you thought it through and that it makes sense. And sometimes the furniture against the wall, sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it's just not the move. Okay, next on my list is gonna be, of course, the boob light. We're just gonna talk about it. The boob light is what we call in the biz builder grade. I'm not in the biz, but I'm just gonna say that. Makes me seem like I am. So what is that? What do I mean by that? Well, some things are fine if they're builder grade. It's just like the stuff that builders just tend to use. It's usually seen as a little bit inexpensive because builders are out for the dollars, and so they're not interested in putting something super crazy premium in. So they're just like, hey, we're just gonna go down and whatever, just pick the whatever thing. And so they pick cheap things and therefore, of course, compromise on quality. And they do the job, but barely anything more than that. And you deserve more than that. So the boob light is, of course, it looks like a boob, hence the name. But then from there, it's just not giving anything interesting. And lighting is such a great way to really make a space feel really beautiful. So we got two things happening, right? You got the light fixture itself, which is, again, in the boob light is not great, it's ugly actually. And then you've got other more interesting lighting fixtures that are out there that create such an opportunity for you to do something that's fluted. Maybe for you to do something with a cool metal. Maybe it's got a cool material. Maybe it's like shaded. Maybe it's linen. Maybe it's like made of rattan. Maybe it's bamboo. Maybe it's brass. Maybe it's, I don't know. There's lots of cool things. Maybe it's vintage. Maybe you went on and you found some really cool schoolhouse lamp that you found at the flea market or at an old vintage or antique stores. I mean, those are so cool. And you can really have fun with your lighting. So that's the thing. There's the lighting fixture itself, and then there's the lighting plan. And that is that really you should have a dynamic lighting plan that has different light sources varying at different levels, all in your room working at the same time. It's uniform universally way more flattering, ideally on dimmers, where you can have a floor lamp, you can have a table lamp. Yes, you can have the light in the center of the room. I feel like it's getting a bad rep lately, but that's because people rely on it too much. You've got that one. You've maybe got some accent LED light strips. You've got some track lighting or something. You've got spotlights. What else have you got? That's kind of it, really. Sconces, pendants. No, there's more. You know, you've got lots of different options in terms of varying light sources. The problem with the boob light is typically people that have a boob light probably also just have the one boob light. And now you've just got one down light that's sitting on top of you, and it's not flattering because light needs to come from different angles at a consistent light temperature in order to be flattering on the people that are in the room. So that right away, instant upgrade for your space. Don't just rely on the one boob light in the center of the room. Okay, next up is gonna be plastic horizontal or vertical blinds. I have a hate on for both of them. There are so many more interesting window treatments that you can use. If you want to add in shades, shades can be really great. If you have motorized shades, fantastic. You can have lots of fun there. But window treatments are such a great way to add color and texture onto a wall. You can add ones that are made of linen. You could have ones that are some sort of like poly hybrid, whatever. Like, just have fun. You know what I mean? Like, have fun and get creative, because there's lots of cool things you do. You do a pattern on there. You could do a color on there. Again, you can have fun with material. There's so many different ways, and it just adds there's a verticality to it, when so often we think of design as being very horizontal, but actually vertical really matters. And so there's an opportunity there to add texture onto the wall that is sometimes quite rare. You don't necessarily get a whole lot of opportunity to do that. It makes a space feel more luxurious. But the plastic horizontal, whatever, I don't even care what, the vertical, I don't really care. They are not good. They're ugly because they're giving nothing. They're giving nothing. They're just plastic. They're plastic, they're white. If you're lucky, they're white. They are dust magnets. So chances are they're probably incredibly dirty. They're very, very hard to clean. Any renter that knows that when you leave and you desperately want to get your damage deposit back, and you got to sit there with the wet cloth and you got to go through every single thing, and you're like, my God, I was living in this place, and you're wiping them down. We all know what that's like. Or even when you're moving, you're selling your place, you got to clean the stuff, and they are dust magnets. They're so annoying. And again, if you're dealing with a fabric, it's a lot easier. Ideally, you have ones that might be dry clean, or you might be able to wash them yourself, but those are much more hygienic, I guess you could say, than the plasticky ones, which are supposed to be, because it's a hard surface, so you'd think it'd be easy, but no, they're actually really irritating and kind of gross. And they're just giving nothing. They're not interesting. There's no opportunity for texture, color, or pattern like you get with other window treatments. You know, you've got Roman shades. Like, there's lots of cool ones that are out there that you should consider. All are better than these. So they're definitely making your place look cheap. And they're, by the way, not even that good at blocking out light. They're not even that good. Or a gust of breeze goes along and you got that click, click, click of all the plastic banging together. No, these are a miss. If I see these in the house, I'm a little bit like, they're fine, but they're boring and they're cheap. Okay, next on my list is gonna be hollow T-bar cabinet hardware. So I have a hate on for these for a couple of different reasons. First of all, I'm just bored of them. There's so many of them, and these are again put in the category of builder grade. You're gonna see a lot of these things. I love builders, I really do, but it's a business, and so they're usually not that interested in doing anything super creative and fun and interesting, unless they have a client that really wants that fun and interesting. But chances are the T-bar ain't it. It's not the fun and interesting version of cabinet hardware. There is so much cool cabinet hardware that are out there, and this just isn't any of it. It comes across as very cheap, it comes across as flimsy, and it is incredibly boring and not going to add any jewelry to your space. We always think that the metals, like your faucet and your in the bathroom, you know, your paper holder and your ring holder and all that stuff is just a fun way to add a lot more jewelry to a space. It sort of caps it all off. And cabinet hardware is included in that conversation. It's just so fun to just really get creative. Some of them are made of marble, some of them are polished nickel, you got brass, you got matte black, you've got all the different ones that are out there, which can all be sort of fun in their own way. And there's leather one, like there's so many, they're just made of so many cool, fun materials, and you can really get creative with color and texture and design, and antique ones, oh my gosh. I was in Glasgow at an antique shop about a month ago, whatever, visiting some friends, and like they just had like a bucket of like old, interesting cabinet knobs, and all those things are so much more interesting than these. So these just feel very cheap, and it just feels like you didn't really think through that there are so many different options that are out there. Now I said there's two reasons they annoy me. So what is the second reason? They snag on all your clothes, and this is why this one I have a particular hate on, because if you've ever like knocked yourself into one when you're in the kitchen, because these are very common in kitchens, they will snag on everything, and you'll get a hole in your shirt, and you're gonna be very, very irritated. So a hole in your sweater is not a fun day, any day of the week, and it's especially not fun with these stupid T-bars that are also ugly as well. So I think that you know, if you want your place to feel a little bit more expensive and interesting, source better and more interesting hardware. Okay, next on my list is gonna be that your art is hung too high. This is not an actual thing again. This is kind of like the layout one I talked about earlier, which is just, you don't even have to do anything. It doesn't cost you any money. Look at that, I'm saving you guys money. I've never said that ever, but like, you know, saving you money here on the Nicklewis channel, and that is hanging your art a little bit lower than you probably think, right? It should be like at eye level or below. Now I'm 6'1", so I usually go a little bit lower than maybe I would, and I'm gonna put up some measurements here that can really help you depending. I find, like, for example, over top of a couch, I'll probably go like 6 inches or so above, because I usually find that works out. It depends on the size of art as well, but there's some general sort of rules that you can use. But when art is hung comically high, again, it's kind of like the furniture against the wall. It just feels very amateur. It doesn't feel very thought through, and you know, it just doesn't make sense. Rarely does this work. Sometimes you can really have fun with scale, and like you can, you know, little small arts and really cute, like small pieces of art in cool places can be really fun. But when it's just like, if it's close to your ceiling, that's not where that belongs actually. So I would say that hanging it lower than you probably think is a good idea. Now, don't go too low, because obviously that's silly, but it's kind of like rug size. Most people don't go too big, most people go too small. So I would consider that lowering that art a little bit is probably a good idea. Again, some people might go too low, but that's really rare. Most of the time, people just hang it comically, hilariously high. Okay, next on my list is gonna be polyester rugs. We were just talking about rugs. I'm not talking about rug size here, although chances are bigger than you probably think. But here's the thing with the polyester ones. It's so disappointing when I see a beautiful rug and I'm really excited about it, and then I'm like, oh, is it gonna be 100% wool? And it is not. It is not 100% hand-knotted wool rug, unfortunately. It is some sort of made of plastic pop bottles or something. I don't know what it is, but it's gonna be something like that. And although really fun from a recycling perspective, I don't necessarily have a whole ton of faith in the longevity of that rug and how great it's going to look and feel in future years. It just feels really cheap when you, like, a rug should feel nice and plush when you step on it barefooted. Like, I do love a jute rug, but I will be also the first to admit that although they can be really beautiful and cost effective, they don't feel really nice, but it's still a natural material, and so I still think they have a place in people's homes. You know, I had one in my bedroom. You can have them, you know, as an entryway mat, or, you know, in a mudroom or something. That could be really a great place for them. They can really work. It's a natural material though, so at least it's honest. At least it's an honest material. It knows what it is. Jute knows Jute knows who she is, and she's comfortable with that. Polyester rug doesn't know who she is. She thinks that she's giving really like fun and playful, that she's not wool. She's trying to be, but she's just not. And I think that's really holding it back, because I just think these feel really cheap and plasticky, because they're made of plastic. There are some good ones. I know I probably upset some people that have some washable ones that are out there, whatever, and they can be quite cost effective. Just know what you're getting. Know what you're getting. If you're gonna put them in and you found a cute one on a website and it's whatever, it's washable and it works and blah, 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 then, you know, go for it. I'm not necessarily always above synthetics, but just know that if it feels plasticky, just be careful. Like, make sure to know the return policy, especially if you're buying online. Like, if it feels cheap and plasticky, it's because it's cheap and plasticky, and it's gonna look and feel that way. So that's not worth it. Honestly, a 100% wool rug isn't, I was gonna say, isn't that expensive. They can be, but they're honestly worth it. They're worth it for you to go with. But there can be some really good ones that are out there as well, but I would just avoid the ones that are plastic. Unless you find a really good dupe that you're happy with and you honestly can truly be true to yourself and say that it feels kind of like the real thing. Okay, next up on my list, this is an easy one. I don't need to preface this in any way and apologize for it, and that is gonna be a bed in a bag. One should not be buying a bed in a bag, in my opinion. It's kind of like the matching furniture sets that I've made fun of in previous videos, which is, I just don't think that the materials that are being used by these are good. They're usually going to be that really like polyfill stuff instead of an actual like down duvet and a duvet cover, which I think is always going to sit and land and feel a lot more premium and a lot more beautiful. And you can also swap them out. You can swap out your duvet cover, but keep the duvet, right, in the long term, like if it gets a hole in it or it ages or it wears out. Well, these things are usually these like comforters where they're all one set. So you got this big pile of, I don't know, cotton balls. I think that's what they always remind me of. They're just like a sheet of cotton ball that you basically lay on yourself every night. And this, I think that where I see these a lot is gonna be kids and teenagers' rooms. I don't know why. I know why. It's because they're quite cost effective. And usually they got, I don't know, like a Disney princess or something on them. And that's why people tend to get them. But I do think that having a nice, especially if you're an adult, is having a nice duvet with a duvet cover in a material that you really like. It's gonna feel a lot better when you're in bed at night. It's gonna lay a lot better on the bed so that it looks nicer when you're actually in the room, because these comforter sets, they never drape properly over the side of the mattress, in my opinion, and they always just feel really, really cheap. You deserve better than this, and so do your kids. Okay, next on my list is gonna be a random accent wall. I have made fun of accent walls a few times here on the channel, but this time it makes it into this series because it needs to be documented in this series. I am not a big fan of picking a random wall and then painting in a different color. Now, I just think that if you're not comfortable with the color that you are choosing here to make the whole room that color, then maybe you should rethink the color instead of the strategy. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're like, I really love hot pink, but I just couldn't see myself putting hot pink on all the walls, then maybe hot pink's not for you. And maybe, that's okay, we can work with this. Maybe we're gonna lean a little bit more like a blush pink. Maybe that's better for you. Maybe that's gonna give you more of the effect of what you're looking for, because maybe you have other cool different tints, tones, and shades of pink in the other rooms in your home, and you've got darker pinks and lighter pinks and maybe some roses and maybe some reds, because it's really just, pink is just a lighter red with more white added to it, right? Like that's, you're having fun. You're having fun, you're playing with lots of different shades and things in the space, and you're just like, but I really wanted that hot pink wall. Well, instead of doing the hot pink wall, again, why don't we consider another darker shade? And maybe once you add a lot more black to it, a lot more gray to it, or a lot more white to it, it starts to feel something that you can manage for the whole room. Because the accent wall is, it was a trend I never liked, to be honest, but it's definitely a trend that just feels like it's stuck in 2014 and you're still stuck there. And that's where the cheapness is coming from, is that it just feels like you bought into a trend that was never really that great. Some are good, some are bad, just my opinion, you know, take it or leave it. But I think that this particular one was not a great one, and then you're still riding it. And in and of itself, that's not necessarily a problem. It's because it wasn't a good trend to begin with, you know? Like if you still love, I don't know, like people will tell you that like vertical slat wood walls were really, really trendy in 2020, 2021, and some people will tell you that they're still dated. But like if you still love it, then great. And if you love your accent wall, of course, you don't have to listen to me, but it's my channel, I can say what I want. So I will say that, you know, the accent wall was never good, unlike some of those wood wall treatments, which I actually think could be quite nice. But this particular one was really, really hot and trendy, and then it became not so much, and so you got stuck in a bad trend. And that's the problem that's making your home feel particularly cheap at this point. I do think that there are current trends right now that also make your home look cheap, but I think this one in particular also has a certain dated quality that just doesn't make sense. Your best bet is to pick a paint color that you can live with and paint all the walls the same color until you get to a transition point. So maybe that's an archway as you enter into a new room. Maybe that's, you know, a divider where a door is, where a door casing is, and you enter into another space. That is where the natural divide is between that room. So that is where you're gonna stop that paint color, and you can go and choose something different on the other side of that transition point. But if you're in that one room, I highly encourage you to consider painting it the whole color or wallpaper it, whatever you want to do. But if you can't live with that one color in the whole room, then perhaps don't do it at all. Okay, so that's it for me, you guys. I hope you really liked this video. If you do, I'm gonna link here to the playlist that I've done where I talk about other things that are making your home look cheap. So if you love being maybe potentially a little bit offended, but hopefully having a little bit of a laugh, then go check out that playlist and I'll see you all there. Okay, thanks a lot. Okay, bye.